Alright, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be exploring and reading some of GhostFire Gaming's Grim Hollow'sThe Monster Grimoire. This part of the Grim Hollow series, previous video, we went through the player's guide. This time, we're going to be going through their grimoire. So, afraid of the dark? What hides within is worse. The dark and dangerous world of Etheris, home of the Grim Hollow fantasy setting, challenges all who live there, and the deadliest challenges to those who trot the adventuring roads of Etheris, and the terrifying, bizarre, and fantastical beasts who lurk in the shadows, or tower over the cities, corrupt humanoids bent and twisted by otherworldly forces, eventually interventing undead, seeking to snuff out the life of the living, malicious fae pursuing their own devious and capricious ends, putrid abominations serving masters imprisoned in the realities between the mortal realm. These forces and more challenge those seeking peace and prosperity in the hostile world. The Grim Hollow Monster Grimoire offers over 400 new monsters, tailor-made for the dark fantasy campaign. The foes detailed in this supplement, ranging from capricious fae to corrupt fiends, can fit nicely into any 5e campaign, where the players are looking for devilish and deadly challenges. The monster lore and statistics are just the beginning. Each monster comes with suggested salvage, monster entities, detailed methods that characters might use to harvest monster parts and turn them into equipment or magic items. Additional materials discuss creating characters from some of the monsters, using them as the utmost tactical and narrative potential, and running intelligent monsters as intelligently as possible. All this and more awaits you within this copy of Grim Hollow'sThe Monster Grimoire. Now, one thing about this book, she's thick. How thick, you may ask? Well, let's bust out some trusty calipers. So with the cover, we are 1 inch and 1/8, or 27 millimeters. Without the cover, and just pages, we are a solid 2 inches, or 20 millimeters, and just over 1 3/4 inches. So, she's a big girl. So, now, this book being over 400 pages, I'm not going to go through the entire thing. This book is very big, and I will be here, and you will be here for like over 2 hours if I was to go through every single one. So I'm probably only going to go to about the first 100 pages. Then we'll come back to the table of contents. And then we'll start to explore and go like, oh, that looks cool. Let's take a look at that. Oh, that looks cool. Let's take a look at that. I will be checking out, though, the intelligent monsters, mastering intelligent monsters, magic items and salvage, and monsters SPCs. Just to see how that is. Because salvaging monster parts is a mechanic that players have been asking for in some official D&D books. And it's always the 5th edition supplements that always seem to deliver. So we'll definitely be taking a look at that. Second thing I'd like to bring up. In the future, I would be trying to do these not just as long-form videos, but I'm also going to be trying out some live streaming here on YouTube and potentially on Twitch. I've still got some things I got to work out with the settings and talk to a friend who already does these things and test out my mechanics. But I think I'm going to be trying to do models and books and other D&D items here on YouTube. I think I'm going to be doing some video game stuff and more free-form content on Twitch. So if you're interested, feel free to stick around. When I do get a Twitch launched and ready, I will let you know. But let's continue on here. So the introduction. The Grim Hollow Monster Grimoire is the third installment of the Grim Hollow series of books. 2 other tomes, the Grim Hollow Campaign Guide, which I will review in a future video, and the Grim Hollow Player's Guide, precede it. The 3 books form a complete set of books for game masters to run dark fantasy and horror campaigns in the Grim Hollow setting. Grim Hollow setting takes place in the world known as Etheris, a dark and gritty environment where the vicious, terrible, and horrifying monsters that hide in the shadowy alleyways and in the remote wilderness are only the start of the peril. As much as the monsters of the world threaten the citizenry, the dark figures that entice those who seek power are just as dangerous. Blood, magic, undeath, lycanthropy, fey magic, fell sorcery, and other temptations would-be heroes are always one wrong step away from becoming the villains they claim to fight. Monster Mayhem. The Monster Grimoire offers more than 400 new creatures, stat blocks, allowing the GM to challenge, frighten, and delight their players, from new characters cutting their teeth on relatively weak threats to the most advanced heroes dealing with world-shattering events. Monsters in this book offer something for everybody. The monsters in this book are drawn from every corner of horror and dark fantasy, gothic intrigue, extraditional dread, gruesome fairy tales, slasher horror, undead hordes, body horror, killer dolls, and so much more. Horror triggers horror. With so much horror monsters and threats at your fingertips, there's a good chance that something presented here will bring into your players' minds something that they're uncomfortable with. Before you use these monsters or run any sort of horror-based campaign, we urge you to discuss with your players their preferences, desires, and limits. Gore, child endangerment, loss of free will, nightmares, all of these and more infest these pages. In the previous Grimoire books, talk about safety tools and methods you can use to ensure everyone avoiding problematic material. We suggest you review those guidelines or use other safety tool procedures and guidelines to learn more about running a game, especially games steeped in horror and dark fantasy for any player. Some people might have some aversions to some of the topics in here. Always good to talk to your players or give them some kind of heads up and adjusting your plans accordingly. All the players I've played with, the only issue we've ever had is no real harm to kids, or if that happens, keep it kind of off screen, and no sexual violence. That's the only thing my players are all pretty much against, and I think most people can pretty much agree to that. Capturing the Grim. Etheris provides a great setting for the grim, gritty campaign. One tool provided in the Monster Grimoire is salvage rules. These rules encourage a type of play that invites characters to make the most of their knowledge and proficiencies, as well as their downtime, in order to have the best chance of surviving the threats they face. The blood, bones, brain, bile of the creatures that they kill might provide the characters with advantages later. Weapons, potions, components, and other magic items might not be readily available, but characters can make their own from salvaged parts of monsters, and in some cases, monsters might be nigh invulnerable unless the characters use their wits. A little knowledge goes a long way. Like the salvage rules, lore plays an important part in the grim fantasy setting. Characters may be in trouble if they don't take the time to learn more about the monsters they face. Local legends about the beast may be a myth or folly, but even within the malarkey, they could be an Ito of truth. It's a strange phrase. And the truth could be the difference between surviving an encounter or suffering an ultimate defeat. The ability checks associated with each monster are meant to provide details on on what a character might know about the monster, or what a character might find out. Use the check to dole out important information. Some checks may require characters to do some research, or even face the creatures to observe its traits and behaviors. Failed checks could result in characters gaining incorrect or partial bits of information, which could lead to dire consequences. Ultimately, goal is fun. Regardless of how you run your games or what your players want from a game, it is important to remember that the goal of playing this game is to have fun and tell great stories. The monsters in this book are there to challenge characters, but they are also there to enhance stories. No bit of lore or game mechanic number is more important than the fun and the story. Change whatever you must to make sure everyone at the table is enjoying themselves, contributing to the story, and leaving the table satisfied. With that said, prepare yourself to encounter some of the most terrifying, challenging, entertaining, bizarre creatures to ever stalk the lands of your imagination. So let us take our first look. Oh boy! That's a start. The Aberrant Horror. Children sing nursery rhymes of suspicious strangers for a reason. Heed the tales of and check them for tentacles before offering shelter. So, anybody who's familiar with John Carpenter's The Thing immediately is getting a sense of this. There was a new game that just came out recently, I think called Still Water Wakes the Deep or something like that. A horror game that takes place on an oil rig. Yeah, you have all this kind of stuff happening all over the place. Some kind of parasite kind of infects a person and slowly fuses into them, changing them as they go. Now, the layout of this particular book is you'll generally get your lore, details on salvage, actual lore that your players can learn, and then their statistics. Now, this is actually two creatures, the Aberrant Horror and the Whipskin Horror. So this is actually two. And all your standard details, armor class, health, saving throws, actions are all there. So, like I said, we're not going to go through every single creature in this book, but we'll stop at the really interesting ones and we'll read through them a little bit. And then we'll pass through ones that are maybe not less so. But the art, I will definitely say, is probably one of the best selling features in this book. You show this to a player, somebody's going to go, one person's probably going to be grossed out, another person going to be going, cool. So yeah, so let's read a little bit on this guy to start. An aberrant, or aberrant experiment? In desperate times, science and magic can progress by leaps and bounds, but with rapid advancement has its risks. Without proper precautions, experiments or their subjects might be caught in a force beyond imagination and become twisted into something abominable. That was the word I was looking for. No two misshapen are alike, yet each of the misbegotten results is known as an abhorrent horror. Warped flesh. Those who survive an uncontrollable transformation into an aberrant horror become living weapons. Some theorize say that the bodies seem to be transmuting big force as a threat and evolve defenses against it. Others believe that an ancient trigger dormant, or the accident triggers dormant bestial adaptations. Man, I cannot speak today, unfortunately. From the distant past. Whatever the reason, abhorrent horrors are vicious combatants armed with hardened claws, venomous spines, and other strange appendages. If you happen to slay one, you can salvage. An aberrant horror has been saturated with eldritch energy. Each horror's body can produce a number of material components for arcane necromancy and transmutation spells, equal to half of the horror's challenge rating. Horror's challenge rating. Don't know if that's a typo or if that's just a weird thing of the English language. Each component is consumed when the spell is cast, but the spell is cast as if the caster used a spell slot one level higher up to a maximum of 5th level. Okay, so you can use parts of this creature as a spell component, and it automatically raises it as if you were upcasting it. That could be very, very useful for some people. Some lore. With a DC 10 intelligence history check, aberrant horrors are the result of failed arcane experiments that twists the body into an unnatural form. Or if you have an arcana check, each aberrant horror is different. Some grow extra limbs, others dissolve into ooze-like creatures, and others swell to massive proportions. They contain eldritch energy that can fuel necromancy and transmutation. So let's take a little closer at their abilities. So 14 armor class, 127 hit points, 30 speed, 30 climb. So high health, medium armor, unless he's got some resistances. 16, 10, 19, 10, 11, 7. So susceptible to magic and other mental saves. Pretty resilient to physical, except for dexterity. Saving throw +3 wisdom. Okay, so he's got some defenses to it. But charisma is definitely his weakness. Skills +3 perception. Damage immunity to acid. Conditional immunity to prone. You cannot knock him prone. That's interesting. Blind sight of 30 feet. Passive perception of 13. Language, it knows 2. Challenge rating of 5. A proficiency bonus of +3. Amorphous. An amorphous horror can move through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide without squeezing. So basically, it's made of jelly. It can squeeze into small areas. Shape changer. An aberrant horror can use its action or a bonus action to polymorph into a form that resembles a small or medium humanoid appearance before it became a horror. Its statistics are the same in each form. Any equipment it was wearing or carrying isn't transformed. It reverts to its true medium form when it dies. Okay, so it has a basic 10 intelligence. If it hasn't gone like completely insane, this thing could just disguise itself as a civilian and just walk around the population. As long as it doesn't do anything to draw suspicion, nobody would know. It can do 2 slam attacks, dealing 1d8 plus 3 plus 2d8 acid. Okay, so that's a pretty decent punch, but it could do that twice. Split, an Emperor's Horror that is a medium or larger and drops below half of its hit points, but at least 10, can split into 2 new horrors. Each new horror has its hit points equal to half of the original, rounded down. New horrors are one size smaller than the original horror. So this is definitely sounds like more like a gelatinous cube. It definitely has a lot of similar traits to it. But it also gives me those vibes of John Carpenter's thing where it can just, oh, I'm being attacked, split into 2. One runs away while the other one keeps trying to fight. Probably to try and flank the other one. The Whip Skin Horror is a little weaker. This one apparently wears armor. Studded leather, okay. 97 hit points, speed 30, 15, 14, 15, 10, 11, 8. The saving throw of +4 dexterity. So this one's going to be a lot harder. Well, the other one would have issues with like fireball on dex saves. This one's actually really good against them. So, but you could hit it with mental stuff and you'd be okay. Perception +2, dark vision, knows 2 languages, false appearance. While the wolfskin horror hides its tendrils from sight, such as underclothing, it is indistinguishable from an ordinary humanoid it once was. Multi-attack. It can make 4 attacks. Tendrils. Reach of 10. 1d8 +2. If the target is a medium or smaller, It is grappled. An escape DC of 14. Until the grapple ends, the target is restrained, and the weapon horror cannot use its tendrils against another target. The horror has 4 tendrils. Until the grapple ends, the target is restrained, and the weapon horror cannot use its tendrils against another target. Okay, so it cannot grab multiple people at the same time, but it has 4? I guess you could probably do 4 tendril attacks. Spit. Range 30 plus 4. 1d8 plus 2 poison, and the target must succeed a constitution saving throw or become poisoned until the end of its next turn. During being within 5 feet of the hostile creature doesn't impose disadvantage on the horror's ranged attacks against spit. Okay, so it could just spit at you being next to you, because usually you take a disadvantage if you're trying to like shoot a bow in point blank range. Tendril Dance. Wimple's skin horror extends and wiggles its tendrils, releasing any creature it has grappled. Each creature within 30 feet of it and are able to see the horror must succeed a DC 12 wisdom saving throw or become charmed by the horror. While charmed by this way, the creature is incapacitated and has a speed of 0. The effect ends for the creature if it takes damage or another creature uses its action to shake the creature out of its stupor, or the horror fails to take a bonus action, on its turn to continue the effect. The horror cannot take the bonus action while using a tendril and grappling another creature. Okay, again, definitely reminds me of a moment in John Carpenter's The Thing where it's kind of just freaking out and everybody's kind of just standing back watching it. And like one guy's going like, hey, somebody do something with that thing, but everybody's too distracted looking at it. That's what that kind of reminds me of. And we have a little bit of GM advice. The arcane origins of the aberrant horror give you a great deal of room to challenge your players with unusual traits. For example, one horror might only take damage when under the effects of the Bane or Bless spell, but ferrying out this information requires the characters to face it once it succeed on an intelligence arcana check. The secret is to pulling this off, make the odd traits easy to learn and possible to accomplish without overly taxing the characters. So yeah, creepy. Definitely could use something like that. What else do we got? Shiftering Hulk. A little strong, quite a bit stronger, challenge 9. Oh, but we also have angels. Angel of the Emperors. I am that of which can cleanse temptation from the land and restore it to once more to divinity. What a weak creature of the flesh you are, blessed with free will and fickle fancy. I will relieve your weakness, wretched mortal. Oh, so he's not a friend! Not a friend! Various angels create a punishment to punish the wicked and ensure the sincerity of the penitents. Because they've called his heavenly hosts the War of the Four Divinities, and blah, 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 blah. Continuing on. Although one thing I looked at this earlier. If you defeat this guy, which he's a challenge rating of 22, good luck. This guy's like boss tier. But if you happen to kill him, the Angels of Empress wields a Holy Avenger. Upon its death, its intelligence inhabits the sword. To attune to it, a paladin character must agree to carry on the angel's mission to cleanse the land of immortality. A cup of its blood can be made into a potion of supreme healing with a DC 10 intelligence religion check from somebody who is proficient with alchemy supplies. 6 cups of blood can be taken from the body. The bones can be used in place of diamonds for the use in raise dead and similar magic, up to the equivalent of 10,000 GP. So his bones can revive the dead. That's insane. We have Anguisher, animated flame tongues, And if you defeat that and you salvage it, you can gain +1 long swords. Require proficiency on a DC 10 strength. After working with them for components, it is rumored that the longswords can be turned into flame tongues again with a proper ritual, but nobody has confirmed these rumors yet. And this is another creature I looked at that's very different. The aberrant moral. Be properly attired, yet be mistaken for a thrall. Dominating clothes. No one knows who constructed the first aberrant moral, but now that they are a plight on the world, the aberrant moral looks to be a set of clothing that flies into the air and wraps around a humanoid victim, taking control of their actions, driven to replicate. Once in control of a host and not threatened, the aberrant moral directs it to create more. A process that takes 100 days and requires 500 GP of rare threads and textiles. If the host does not have the funds or materials, the aberrant mole attempts to steal them. Mine and no one else's. The aberrant mole can constrict any creature it grapples, slowly crushing death. Is the fate of any humanoid that resists the aberrant mole's charm. Defeating him gets the threads of these contain magic and vulnerable components for construction of several magic items. They can be sold for 50 gold pieces if it was not consumed by flame. Someone who collects the remains of 10 of them can craft a cloak of protection with a successful DC Intelligence 15 Arcana check by someone who's proficient with Weaver's tools. Crafting this item takes 5 days, costs 200 GP. 14 hit points, fly of 40 feet, 14, 15, 10, 8, 4, 2. It is vulnerable to fire, but it is immune to poison and psychic. It is immune to being blinded, charmed, deafened, exhausted, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, and poisoned. Blind sight of 40 feet, blind beyond this radius. Anti-magic. Damage when grappling a creature. An aberrant mole is resistant to all damage, and the creature grappled by the aberrant mole takes damage equal to that taken by the aberrant mole. False appearance, it looks like regular clothing. Anti-magic susceptibility. Constrict and puppeteering. Tallow toads. Chalk chantings. These creatures are pretty much, hey, you're trying to cast some kind of ritual spell. Well, if you do it wrong, your own components come alive. Arcanist Inquisitors. These guys are basically, Inquisitioners. Basically, go after mages. They have whole lores. I think they're a minor faction in the Grim Hollow setting. You have different types of characters for them. Beast Blights. The Great Beast. Now, this is a creature that actually does not have a statistic. It does not have any stats at all. So this one is not meant to be really a creature. It's more like not an environmental hazard, but something like that. The Great Beast is just a rumor, a story parents tell their children to keep them from wandering too far from home. It's a crime to spread lies about the existence of the beast. It is also a crime to fail to report any sightings of the beast to the proper authorities. So, creatures mutated by the beast. Simply being in proximity to the great beast causes gruesome and dangerous mutations in creatures. Some creatures, such as Huroks, Gnolls, Capricorns, for example, are specifically spawned, changed, and created to interact by interactions within the beast. Other creatures, however, their mutations are more random. Following this table, creatures go a second head, which seeks to kill all living things. Creature's shadow can detach and attack as a shadow or a specter. Creatures gain immunity to one damage type. So yeah, that's pretty messed up. More animated weapons. I'm sure some alchemist is to blame for this. Blazehorn. Blight elementals. In a place where the land is twisted from its natural state, elementals can be affected. Their poison spreads quickly, creating more of their kind until the blight covers everything. Blight scale dragon. Dragons are rare, so seeing one is terrifying. Seeing one rotting before your eyes as it approaches, mind-shattering. Gargantuan dragon, neutral evil, cursed. A cursed death. When the dragon dies, it excludes a cloud of stinking, accursed gas. With each creature within 30 feet of the dragon must succeed a DC 22 Constitution saving throw or become poisoned. All your usual stuff. Actually, what is a piece of salvage you can get from this? Someone who is proficient with smithing tools or leatherworking tools can fashion the scales from an adult or an ancient blight scale dragon into dragon scale mail. Doing so takes 10 days and other materials worth 5,000 GP. The armor offers no protection against frightful presence, but grants resistance to necrotic damage and poison damage. The claws from a young or older blight scale dragon can be fashioned into daggers of venom. Doing so requires proficiency with smithing tools or wood carving tools, 5 days of work and other materials worth 1,000. If two eye fanged of an adult or ancient blight scale dragons are treated with the remove curse spell and buried together in soil consecrated with the hollow spell, they grow into a blight scale drake that emerges from the earth in 3 days. The drakes bond to the first creature to feed it. Blood and other fluids of the blight scale dragon can be harvested and used to offset the shadow steel components, which when bestowing a curse on a foul blight. Wormlings are worth this much. Young dragons this, blah, blah, blah. Blood oozes. Blood trackers. This one is another one I read earlier. This is basically a dog that vampires have kind of converted. And then its nose mutates so that it can continue to find more blood. Blood bonded? Bloodwood giants? Bojack. This guy is become enthralled by a dryad, and he's obviously trying to protect it. Bone trader. Oh, bugbears. Again, the art in this book is, again, very, very good. Candlelight demon. Caprathorns. Oh boy. Ooh, big boy. That's terrifying. Champions of Filth. So I think most, if not all, of the subclasses that the player's guide had have also been created into just regular creatures. So this is one of the paladin subclasses. Our blight shall purify this land of the meek and the unworthy. Ethris will be reborn. Chapped Brute. Churning cold fire ooze. College of Requiem. Yeah, this is the Bard one. It was the most horrible thing I have ever heard. It was beautiful. I'll say if you kill somebody here, performers of the College of Requiem use masterwork instruments of bone and ivory. Each instrument has a distinct sorrowful sound. Someone who has proficiency with instruments and has advantage on charisma checks when using to play a series of similar mournful tunes. Each instrument is worth 25 gold times the challenge rating of the performer it belonged to, but only an expert in instruments will recognize its value. Corpse Walkers. Corpse Wisp. Crawling Grave. This thing was born from a mass grave. What makes you wonder who the real monster is, doesn't it? Cult of Tormak. Gamer Oak. Dark Feather. A figure moves silently through the city. Well past midnight, a masked doctor treating those who have contracted the weeping pox. Those who look closer see a monster, not a masked healer, walking the streets. Glands from the dark feather skull can be harvested and processed into 1 dose of necrotic poison, which acts as a potion of poison, inflicting both poison and necrotic damage if ingested. Harvesting and preparing the poison requires proficiency in the poisoner's kit, takes 4 hours, and a DC 12 intelligence check. Death Cap. That's another terrifying thing. Disembodied. It's one thing to be stuck somewhere. It's another thing to be stuck in 2 places at once. Ritual Disaster. The disembodied are survivors of a magical ritual to become that became a regional disaster. All people within or near the city of Umar's Gate when the incident occurred vanished from the face of Ithris. Years later, some returned. Through each has their own form of indistinct to others. The disembodied claim they spent the intervening time stuck between planes, a claim which seems to be true given the odd abilities the disembodied now possess. The disembodied, their vanishing and subsequent reappearance happened in a blink of an eye. Disembodied who weren't members of the Great College attempt to pick up their lives from where they left off, rebuilding the infrastructure of Umar's Gate, or leaving to work their trade elsewhere. Those disembodied from the School of Magic spend their time looking for ways to reverse the damage caused by the magic that transformed them. It's the Eyes of Sauron! The Downcast. Basically, I think they're like fallen angels, I think. Yeah, angel to mortal. Drakes. Dream spirits. Dreamers. Eater of Orbs. Ebonite. Eldritch Priests. Emberance and Braised Bull. Forest Elephants, basically. Okay, this part, I believe, is actually NPCs that you could recruit, or people that you could speak to in the main campaign. Or they're just, yeah, or they're just allies. Favens. Fate Cat. Fiendish Contractors. Fractured. Okay, so we are over 100 pages. So let's go back. Let's check out the table of contents. And let's just fast forward to some cool sounding creatures. We have a Gore Elemental, page 137. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'd think. That looks like something you'd see in the Doom Eternal games. At the center of a Gore Elemental is a skull, which belonged to the most powerful creature that perished at the slaughter that created the Gore Elemental. With a successful DC 15 Intelligence Arcana check and 100 gold's worth of components, one can take a Talisman of Tormak. See Chapter 4. This process can take 4 hours. Okay. What else do we got here? Harvester of Lies, page 150. Here we go. Don't lie to me, or the harvester will steal your tongue. The lie detectors. Infamous liars sometimes return as harvester of lies after they die. These undead beings are capable of unearthing, detecting falsehoods. The more lies one tells, the more attractive the liar's tongue becomes to the harvester. If defeated, the harvester's coat of lies can be claimed. Ew, the inside of his coat is literally tongues. Oh, Hermit Skull. That's the... Your first instinct might be to laugh, but it's close enough to see that the hatred burning in its eyes and its eye sockets. Another's instinct is to likely take cover. Hatred reborn. A hermit's skull has belonged to a person so hateful that the hate reanimated the spirit after death. Lacking the body to animate the whole body, the monster's 6 oozing ectoplasm limbs extend from the skull, and it's chattering around in search of a life to destroy. In this task, the hermit skull is cunning enough to burrow into the soil and wait for its prey to pass nearby. Then the skull attacks. Okay, what else do we have? Horror Out of the Box, page 158. Oh, I'm getting it vibes from this thing. Multi-clad creatures, spindling arms and legs flail wildly as it dashes towards a screeching child. The fake creature is a mischief rather than menacing. The horror out of the box is so named because it is oddly shaped and distinct legs and arms, the colors of its garments, along with the limbs resembling pleatings like a child's toy, as well as its face colored like a jester's wearing a domino mask. The horror out of the box profanes to remain in areas where strong fey presences, but outside of such invasions, it can be found in urban areas. Oh, it is a treasure hoarder. It likes to commit pranks. What else we got? A Lich Troll, 190. Running away from a troll is smart. Running away from a troll that can cast spells is wishful thinking. Accurate. Accurate. A botched experiment. Before research led to the creation of the first soul vessel, and Lich, desperate wizards made many failed attempts to pursuit of immortality. Given that trolls return to the hale, hardy, stale state and most injuries, some wizards decided to inserting the soul into a troll's body might be the right course. The results were poor. Most lich trolls look like a humanoid skull with a burning eyes on top of a troll's body. Due to the imperfect process, the creature's lost some of its arcane power. It's gained the benefits of the body of the regenerative giant. Challenge rating 14, 133 hit points, 16 natural armor. Lots of saving throws. Con 9, intelligence 7, wisdom 6. Only charisma is pretty much its weakness. Wait. Damage immunity, fire, and poison. Aren't you supposed to use fire on trolls? Damage resistance, cold and necrotic. Conditions, immunity is charmed, exhausted, and poisoned. A Lich Troll is reanimate of early attempts of powerful spellcasters to transfer their souls into trolls. The Lich Troll is immune to poison and resistant to necrotic damage. It regenerates and can be killed only by acid, fire, or radiant damage. But it says it has damage immunity to fire. That's weird. The Lich Troll regenerates 15 hit points at the start of its turn. If the Lich Troll takes acid or radiant damage, this trait does not function until the start of the Lich Troll's next turn. The Lich Troll dies only if it starts its turn with 0 hit points and doesn't regenerate. Okay, so there's a weird inconsistency. Here it says can only be killed by acid, fire, or radiant. But if you look at the regenerate, it only mentions acid and radiant. Fire is considered a damage resistance. That's a weird inconsistency. I don't know if that's a typo or... I guess the burning eyes maybe give it that resistance to fire. It's like, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically a flying head that's on fire that shoots spells. Combine that with a troll, pretty much. Chill Touch, Mage Hand, Prestidigitation, Ray of Frost, Detect Magic, Magic Missile, Shield, Thunder Wave, Detect Thoughts, Invisibility, Mirror Image, Misty Step, Animate Dead, Counter Spell, Dispel Magic, Haste, Blight, Dimension Door, Cloud Kill, Scrying, Create Undead. And Zombie Trolls. Okay. Mage Bane Ooze. 200. Every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction by an angry wizard. Made of Spite. Magebane oozes are created by an irritant wizard to wreak havoc on rivals. Unfortunately for him, this creation got loose before he could unleash them, making him its first victim. So this thing goes after magic users, basically. Any magic weapon that is hit by the ooze has some of its magic stripped away. After dealing damage, the weapon can take a cumulative -1 penalty to attacks and damage rolls. If the penalty reaches -3, the weapon permanently becomes a mundane version of the weapon type. A weapon affected by the magical drainage reduces its penalty by 1 at the end of each long rest. Magic ammunition that hits the ooze becomes mundane immediately after dealing damage. Yep. That sucks. What did we see over here? Mage plants? I would actually like to see the salvage of these things. The seeds from 3 thunder blossoms 2 lightning vines, or 1 flash freeze can be worked into an oil that when placed on a weapon, allows that weapon to do damage corresponding to the nature of the plant. Making this oil requires some proficiency with nature. And succeed a DC intelligence arcana check after spending 12 hours and 100 G of components. This oil, when put through a melee weapon, can deal additional damage, 1d12 for 24 hours. Interesting. Now, put some pants on, man. Maiden's hair. All right, so what else do we got here? Oozing Vulture, 244. Let's take a look there. The squawking and flapping of wings didn't cause me to flee. The blood-dripping feathers and gawking beak, a whole different story. Oozing feathers. Oozing vultures appear to be a avery creature with red-tinted feathers that drip blood when they're hunting. The blood often attracts other predators, which the oozing vulture attacks when they approach the expecting an easy meal. Attracted by blood, oozing vultures can smell an open wound over great distances, and the smell of blood causes it to slip into a ravenous frenzy. So that sounds like something you could just throw at a player to, like, after a fight. It's like, oh, we're going to take some time in salvage. We're going to take some time to rest. Vultures. Outlaws. Pack breakers. That sounds like another paladin subclass. The plague doctor. All right, well, we'll check that out. Parasite warlocks. 254, 258. Parasite warlocks. Some lose their grasp on reality. Others revel in the strange and terrible realities they've seen. A parasite warlock always has a blight worm within it. In the typical blight worm warlock, the worm is immature and unable to live outside of the host. Extracting a blight worm from the host requires somebody to perform a medicine check of DC 15, Wisdom, Medicine. The corpse of the 2 such immature blight worms, or 1 mature one, can be used to create 4 doses of a potion that mimic the telepathic bond spell. For those who drink it at the same time within 30 feet of each other, are willing to participants of the bonding. Make this potion requires blight worms, regenerative. That's pretty interesting. And the other one was the plague doctor. Ow. Oh, Pesta. Each season, a fiendish hand of hazing simmering and thinks it is just the heat. They go out and they never come back. Okay. Oh, I know. Anybody who has played The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, one of the best quests in that game was the one where you go onto an island that is apparently, what was it? One of your companions asks you to go to an island to find an old wizard's research notes. You go to the island just to discover that there is a ghost or something on the island that is possessing it. Depending on your actions, if you release the ghost, you get a pesta, which is basically like a wraith, but of disease. That's what this is. I remember seeing somebody made an online, like, homebrew version, but I'm pretty sure it was a much higher level. But I wanted to actually remake that quest in a D&D format. I think I just found my creature. Or that homebrew one, but I think that homebrew one's a much higher level. So if I want to do a lower level, I could do this. And plague doctors. Those who hold power over life and death are dangerous for exactly that reason. Accurate. When the weeping pox spread into Lycan, the calls went out to any mage or physician who might be able to develop a cure to the horrible blight. This call led to the influx of healers and wizards, many hoping to gain fame and glory by solving the riddle of this new disease. They were unprepared for the situation that awaited them. Forged by disaster. Right. Lycian was in a horrible state. The disease swept from person to person, unhinged by the treatments and science of the magic could bring to bear. In desperation, a few healers who managed to avoid succumbing to the disease developed entirely new branches of magical alchemy in hopes to stemming the tide. Two groups emerged from the plague-ridden metropolis. One was Morbius Doctorates, who claimed victory over the disease with a secretive but costly cure. Others is the unrefined hosts of would-be survivors, some twisted by the horrors of they witnessed. Plague doctors are experts in medical arts and possess alchemist supplies, healer's kits, and herbalist kits. Once they possess into more specialized alchemy, they also have special concoctions, including many potions that mimic spells. See Plague Doctors from the Wizard's Traditions of the Player's Guide for more information of what Plague Doctors might have or what NPCs might be customized. Okay, what else do we got? This video is almost an hour long already. All right, let's just pick like two more. Skin Weaver. The Toy Maker. Look at that. Sorry, Toy Maker. 338. That's also terrifying. Corpse Stealer. Or Corpse Seeker. Gathering corpses from necrotic rituals is difficult, dirty work. Ugh. Swarm of Ears. The Toy Maker. Good little children get to sleep through the night. Bad little children get a visit from the Toy Maker. Evil Hunter of the Naughty. Dark, cold nights bring out a hunter that with a keen eye for wrongdoers. The creature known as the Toy Maker scouts settlements, searching for people in dark secrets. Such a person gets a nocturnal visit, leaving their household a bloody graveyard. The Toy Maker targets those who have committed terrible acts, but has no qualms against attacking anyone standing in its way. A sight of blood and bone. The Toy Maker is a hunched, skinless humanoid with a bone protruding through bare muscle. It has a grinning face covered with a white beard of bony spines. When the Toy Maker is angry or excited, it grows wider, and its beard chitters as the spines click together. However, it also appears as a white-haired human of jolly countenance, especially when creating its toys. It's basically Santa Claus. Footsteps on the roof. The Toy Maker enters houses by non-traditional means, such as the attic or chimney. People who know what Toy Maker's about will block their windows and keep fires burning through the night. In addition to its unusual entry habits, the Toy Maker rarely leaves traces. Again, it is Santa Claus. Bag of toys. The toy maker stuffs victims into a great leather sack. Back in its lair, the toy maker puts survivors to work making toys out of the remnants of other victims. Survivors work their way until they escape or die. Someone who can no longer work making toys become toys. Okay, so this art's a little deceptive. This person is one of the victims of the toy maker, but it's not the toy maker themselves. But yeah, it's basically Santa Claus. If you salvage him, you can basically make a bag of holding, but if you don't do it right, it can become a bag of devouring. Urban ooze. Wandering head, weeping zombie. Wood weird. And they have a whole thing here of just vampires. Let's look up an elf vampire. $3.94. As shown in the following traits, young and older elf vampires gain turn resistance and immunity to being charmed. Or rendering unconscious, although some wood elves have the exception. Most elf vampires do not take on animal forms, therefore lack the beast form actions. Young and old elf vampires often gain a Fey Magistry action, but also until the vampire is ancient, it is one of the stat blocks. Challenge 9. Okay, this is for an ancient, so that's somebody who's been one for a very long time. 19. Wow. She was ancient, tall, and gaunt, impervious and fierce. Her skin was translucent and slightly luminous within the crimson fluid beneath, leading to a bizarre, vibrant flush. Her anger and sorrow reached from her, sharing the sense of time before my people cut and burned the forest. I wept. All right. So let's move on from the creatures and let's check out these. Page 404. Mastering Intelligent Monsters. Oh, because this video is now over an hour, I don't think I'm going to read all of this. But I'm just going to try and skim it, and I'll point out some things. Basically, because all creatures are not just one note, move in straight line, attack closest thing. They have their own abilities, their own tactics, and they should know what to do if, hey, the big guy with the axe over there is dangerous, but there's a smaller guy behind him. Maybe I should go for him. Or, oh, this guy's dying, but this guy's full health. Let me finish off the dying guy first. Advanced tactics. One tool game masters have at their disposal is to chance, without overwhelming them, is to use tactics to their fullest potential. Some game masters are shy from reverse and running monsters and deadly tactics. They worry that playing monsters smarter sets of traits of GM versus player can sour the game. If every character is just a slug out fights, trading blows until one side or the other reaches 0 hit points, then the battles can feel very samey. True. Every monster feels the same. Beasts played with nature. Huntings and fiendish, diabolical and things. When a monster goes for the kill, players who beat them feel a sweeter triumph. Yes. The advice don't always mean playing to win. Certain strategies can fight more challenging or deadly, can actually make fights less fun. Basically, don't go overboard. Nature and intelligence. Yes, certain things will have a nature, a thing they like to do, or how they do it. Intelligence is, all right, what is the best thing to do? Yeah, reading their stat blocks. We have speed kills. Look at the speed entry for types of movement of typical characters can't match. A flying speed means a monster can avoid melee attacks, strike the ranged attackers, and spellcasters seem to be most In range, burrowing speeds are hit and run tactics that let creatures bury themselves underground between strikes. Incorporeal movement appears to be a trait rather than a movement type, but effects in battle skill thrills. Look for stealth under creatures' skills. Stealth entries suggest that the monster wants to hide and ambush for surprise. That goes for high dexterity. Creatures with high stealth or ranged attacks often favor sniping strategies. Yeah, again, true. Also for proficiencies with most knowledge-based skills such as arcana, nature, or even medicine, just as creatures might use these wits to learn more about the monsters, seek the lore, so too monsters know something about the characters and their tactics with their own checks. So if you're going to say, oh, I would like to know more about the monster. All right, well, the monster wants to know more about you. That's actually a good thing, especially when you kind of roll it and you go, oh, I rolled rather high. I know you are a barbarian that does this, this, and this. Uh-oh. Resistance is not futile. Next, check the creature's resistance and immunities. In heat of battle, they may prove easy to overlook. Also, a creature that is immune to a certain type of damage will want to maximize its defensive tactics, might use it for its advantage. Why wouldn't a fireborn troll with immunity to that energy type fill its lair with fire that could push enemies into? Agreed, yes, that makes sense. Innate spellcasting. Monsters that bring spellcasting traits to the table check the material components that are required. Creatures that can cast spells with no components, typically constructs and psionic monsters, cannot be interrupted by counterspell because there is no outward signs that the spell is being cast, and hence the reaction to cast counterspell is not triggered. Traits and actions. Beyond actions. What do monsters want? Saplocks lack one key element to a creature's strategy, although the monster flavor text might bridge the gap. What does the monster want? Many beasts just want food. Others defend territory or strongholds. If a creature stands guard, it may only want to raise an alarm. Supernatural creatures may have more unnatural desires. Demons want welcome chaos. Some undead savor screams as relief from the silent eternity trapped in a tomb. Monster's desire can shape its tactics, changing its path to victory, in effect when it chooses to stop a fight. Choosing a battleground. Monsters that in like their lair have a home field advantage. Formation celebration. Despite its approach, many dungeons fights still begin with a group opening the door, revealing full room of monsters, and most parties win initiative. They unleash a volley of missiles and spells that bring a short end to most encounters. These are not necessarily a problem. If monster wins initiative, however, they can move to block the entrance, cower to the door, and turn the potential dynamic fight into a two groups hacking through hit points in a 5x5 opening. Flip the script. Thwarting a party's plan. Melee rules, range kills, feng shui for victory, ambush and surprise, movement and cover, choosing your targets, dialogue. Yeah, your monsters, especially if they are some kind of intelligence, can try and talk to the players. Especially if things are not going their way, they can try and talk their way out of it. Okay, magic items and salvage. Powers of salvage, overcoming incredible odds, keeping friends close, the power of salvage in the narrative. Salvage crafting rules, crafting time, necessary proficiencies, ability checks, and other components. Crafting times. Yeah, this is something that I may want to read more closely. New magic items, an Elder Stone, Arcane Oil, Brazen Armor, Cap of Bravery, Caustic Rapier, Coat of Lies. Magebane Bomb. This bubbling liquid of distilled from the remains of a Magebane ooze can be thrown. You can throw the container at an enemy's weapon or armor or a spellcaster. Simple ranged attack. On a hit, the target takes acid damage and their weapon takes a -1 penalty. Their armor takes a -1 penalty. Start as a spellcaster and hitting, they take 1 penalty to their hit with their spells and spells save DCs. Yeah, so this book offers a lot of material here. And turning certain classes or certain creatures into characters. I remember bugbears in older editions were not in the player's handbooks, they were in the monster manuals. But if you wanted to play bugbears, you could get their traits and stats. Gnolls. Well, they don't have as many options as I thought they would. And then the open game license. So yeah, so that is pretty much the Monster Grimoire from Grim Hollow. Yeah. Do I recommend this book? The art in this book is really, really good. If you want something to kind of supplement another book, like if you didn't have the monster manual, but you had this could definitely pick up a lot of things for you. Or just sub them out. Like this, like, instead of having kobolds, you could have these guys, for instance. And players who are used to kobolds won't say, hey, wait, this is a little different. And you start throwing these things at it. But yeah, this book, the art is really, really good. I like the salvage rules. I like the fact that they have lore that the players can learn, but extra information for the DM that you can kind of use towards it. They have little pieces of GM advice. I didn't read too much into those, but yes, I think I would recommend this book, especially if you can kind of get the whole set. But the book on its own would be a little trickier to use, but you still have all your core things. Even if you just flip to a random page, pick a monster, and throw it at your players, which is how me and my friends originally started to play this game. It was more like Monster of the Week. Hey, kill this thing. Shadowsteel Ghouls. Ooh. But supplementing these out, especially for players who are kind of getting used to regular monsters in the monster manual, swapping some of these out can definitely refresh it and make them feel new and alive. So yes, I would recommend this book. I know GhostFire tends to run new campaigns for other supplement books, and you can usually get their older books through add-ons, which is what I did basically. But yeah, so I would recommend this book. The art is fantastic. The lore is good. It is very, very thick, so you're definitely kind of getting your money's worth. 400 creatures. If you said like, what, 50 cents a monster? Yeah, that's like over what, 50 cents a monster, 400 monsters. That's like $200 if you were to do it that way. So yes. So that is the Grim Hollow Monster Grimoire by GhostFire Gaming. Yeah, I will definitely be taking certain creatures from this book and including them into my Dungeons of Drakenheim game I'm running for my players. I think that will definitely kind of spice up some of the combat there, because constantly throwing zombies at players can get a bit stale. But throwing something like this, that's gonna change some things. But that is enough for this video. I will be reviewing the campaign guide next after this video. And then I have another set of books from GhostFire Gaming that I think I will be reviewing after that. After that, I think I will be doing some model painting, because we assembled quite a few models, but we haven't painted some in a while. But then after that, we'll assemble more. And at some point between now and the next couple months, I would like to try live streaming. Either live streaming a painting model or reading through an adventure. Or just playing some video games. I think that's always the simple option. So, if any of that interests you, subscribe, like, comment, do all the things the algorithm gods ask for. And I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.